Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly podcast where two friends talk about the meaning of things and, more recently, how to achieve success in our doings. My name's Michael Forrest.
I'm Ivanka Magic.
This week, we're going to talk about, in episode 3 of How to Get Shit Done, I want to talk about how to get people to help you. Help you with what? Dunno. Just do stuff.
What do you mean?
Say I've got some work that needs doing. Say I want a graphic designer to do something. That's one thing. Say you want to get a record deal. You want a record company to help you. Or say you want to go and pick up some litter or something. That's the sort of thing you probably do. And you wanted people to help you with that.
That is exactly the kind of thing I do. Pick up litter in the streets. So much so that my child walks down the road going, "Rubbish!"
Are there any things you'd like people that you tend to find you want? You're a management type.
You're a manager.
You have been. You have been my boss.
I have.
And I think I've done shut up. I've done a bit of it, but not for a while now, to be honest. I do it once in a while, but then other than that, there's only so much you can do on your own.
There is. There really
one
is
person,
only so much you can do on your own.
Yeah, and this is something I often come up against. And I just want to kind of figure out, especially as I have just embarked on a very solo thing, I just want to remind myself to not just sort of go into the bunker and try and kind of be outwards.
So your new project is a very solo thing.
Well, I don't know, I can get some momentum on it without anyone else's help, but obviously I would prefer it was a community. But we'll talk about that in the episode.
Lots about identifying that you need help and asking for help, whether that is in a professional capacity or a personal capacity, just going, I can't do this, or it would be so much easier if somebody helped me. So there's lots of psychology type stuff and personal shit, admitting that you need help.
Yeah, and there's reciprocity in there as well, so
yes.
we'll talk a lot about that, and also paying people, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So let's go, shall we? How's it going, Ivanka? You are in Croatia. And hence slightly more echoey.
I am in Croatia and I'm echoey. I'm good. It took me a day or two to recover from my epic van journey. It's a bit harder in winter because the days are shorter. The child is also now big enough to sit in the front of the car and by sort of mid-afternoon go, "Mummy, Daddy, what are we doing?" As she sort of goes stir-crazily insane.
God.
In an angry way, it's quite funny. This is a new development because she's not angry, she's not crying, she's simply going, "Ah!"
Well, be grateful that there aren't 7 of them in the back of your car as you drive across Europe. For at least, we used to do it. It was like a day of driving each way, but and before there was any such thing as a smartphone playing videos in the back seat, that's for damn sure.
We don't do that in our car. We have music though.
You don't do it yet.
I don't know. I think she'd get car sick, to be honest with you. Once more visited the capital. And now collected my bits of paper that I deposited there last time. So I'm now my hyphen has been corrected.
Woohoo!
And so, yes.
Listen back to episode number
40-something. Anyway,
40-something for why Ivanka had to do that. Just listen to the whole back catalogue to find out.
And then I went to the local registrar. I've got my spelling on my citizenship papers corrected. I can now register my marriage, register my child, all these other things. The local registrar was incredibly helpful. I'm always so shocked when Croatian administrators are really helpful. It's like, what? So you're not going to make this really difficult for me? But why? What's wrong? What have I done? So that was good. And now we're in our house. It's lovely and the weather's nice and sunny. It's still winter. But when it's not raining, it's bright blue skies, which is always nice. And so,
shortest day of the year, isn't it?
Is it? Oh yeah, that's today.
I presume it's everywhere.
I don't know.
Well, everywhere
Guess
on
so.
this...
On the northern hemisphere.
Longitude or whatever. Latitude. Which one's
Oh, I suppose. Let's have your week.
Let's have your week.
Let's be having your week, Michael.
This week has been all right. Been doing a bit of work, and my video from last week didn't go quite as well as the last one, which I'm surprised because I thought it was really good with the alien. But my previous one got featured in my favourite source of kind of nerdy stuff, that Hacker newsletter. So it was just down under like number 4 under watch, which is I always watch all the videos in there because there's always amazing stuff in there. And like number 1 in there was like 10 times faster 3D printer invented. You know, it's like that caliber of stuff. And then number 4 is my little Euromechanical modular sequencer thing.
Did you get a stat spike?
Not particularly. I don't know. Like, there's like 58,000 subscribers to that, and then on Hacker News. So Hacker News is a website. It's like Reddit, but even more, like, much more nerdy. It's just for sort of programmers. Where I can't be bothered to read, but sometimes I post something on there. But it immediately like disappears off, and you're like, okay, never mind. And then it wasn't until I saw that I saw that there'd been discussions around it, and so I went back and saw what people had been talking about. I was like, hey! Yay. So that was excellent.
It's excellent.
And the other thing is, I talked last week about the mission that I wanted to start. So Saturday evening, I was talking to Sharon. I had this idea about cryptocurrency and taxes. And I started talking about it. And then I thought, I'm just going to sit down and write this into a quick video script because I'm sort of in that routine now with the YouTube videos. It kind of came quite easily. And I just kind of like, recorded the voiceover and started into an animation this week. So I've been working quite hard on this. And I thought I've got a few more ideas like this. So like, what if we did get rid of what if we had AI and a set of values instead of the legal system? What if we abolished private education so that rich people had to make the public schools nice?
Yeah.
What if we did something like that? That was an idea that came out of the Think Nation thing. One of the students just kind of came out with this thing, and it didn't make it into the presentation. Although I said I thought she should have thrown it in as an offhand joke, but it didn't quite make it into the final presentation. But I just thought it was a really interesting thought.
I wonder how much of private education is to do with good education, how much of it is just to create a little secret club of people.
Well, there's a secret club, and then there's a sort of, it seems to embed a certain intense sense of entitlement and infallibility that seems to really help kind of brush over a lot of mediocrity. So you can, even the mediocre students get both the massively overinflated self-confidence and the network of,
other people like that.
They still, even the kind of not that bright ones, do well.
Yeah, I see. But anyway, it's an interesting idea, abolishing private education.
And I thought I might do a video on like how if I came to this state as a code base, I'd be like, and how I would sort of like refactor it and kind of what you'd do if this was software. And then the idea being that this is about creating a kind of a channel where we have little videos like this to basically do a bit of blue sky thinking over what if we weren't constrained by where we are now. What sort of things would you do if you could start again? And the working title is Blank State, but I just checked on Facebook and there's a couple of other people using that for things. It's just basically to get kind of like transcend this whole Brexit, no Brexit, Trump, no Trump, and just like what do we want to have? Opening up those discussions so that we can start, and it all connects into kind of helping people vote better. And think about what the state actually needs to supply, just given where we are technologically, and in terms of not wanting to leave anyone behind, and we're in a place where it seems to be going that way, that a lot of people are being left behind. So basically, a channel where we do that. So, and it just means I can do it's something I've got a lot of thoughts on. I can kind of turn around a little video in not too much time, but I'd also quite like to get you to voice over some and like talk about some things, and just kind of like it would be a channel that isn't about me for a change. It would be a channel that is about some ideas that would invite discussion and just get people kind of thinking a bit less about this kind of like us and them, the thing, and try and get people thinking about a vision of what it could be. And when we all know that a bit of blue sky thinking can often yield some very practical ideas if you just kind of go with it.
The thing that would do, I think, would be elevate the discussion about some of this base politics stuff at the moment. I don't think I said this on podcast, but there'd been in the extended family, there'd been a conversation about Brexit, and there's some very pro-Brexit ideas that were coming from very immediate, short-term and not connected to the EU or Brexit ideas, like a change in pension age for women, for example. And going back to the conversation we've had repeatedly, which is how hard it is to talk to somebody with whom you disagree so fundamentally, especially when they bring it to a point of minuscule fact that actually isn't a fact. But if you say, okay, all right then, what should it look, actually elevating it sounds like a way to reopen the discussion away from,
and I think we'd all like the same thing. I think we'd all like to be looked after by, I think we'd all like it. Like, and obviously, like, people might get defensive of the sort of competition and feel like that if they're working harder, they should get more. But there's no reason to say you can't have that. But yeah, the other one was like universal basic income. Let's sort of do something on that, and just all these ideas that you kind of shut yourself off from imagining, because it's like, well, we can't just throw everything away and start again. But this way we could talk about it in the UK, in America, and point at Estonia and sort of places like that are trying something different, are using the technology more effectively. And it's like, if Brexit's going to happen, then, I mean, one of the things, I saw that Dominic Cummings has got an HBO film made about him called Brexit, which I am very much looking forward to, which is all about, and, he's someone I kind of discovered at the heart of, the real reason behind Brexit was this data, like big data manipulation and like personalized adverts and all this stuff. I'm very excited that that's going to be visualized in a high budget HBO film and shown on Channel 4 in January. Obviously, there's some people kind of unhappy about that, but it looks like they're even showing like some of these adverts that were being shown to people look like. Amazing. Because I just don't have that in my brain, and I want it in my brain. So played by Benedict Cumberbatch with a sort of receding hairline. Yeah. So Dom Cummings, someone that I tweeted last year going like, why did you do this? What was your reason for this? And he's the one that said basically the EU is just too slow moving to be able to kind of course correct. And that was his reason. And we've talked about this, like, that's not what you were telling the people like when you got them to vote. You weren't targeting people based on the reasons that are problematic with EV.
But that's so arrogant, though. You don't need to concern yourselves with the real reason for Brexit. Yeah. You just vote to have no more immigrants. It's fucking disgusting. I did have a week. I had a moment this week because I'd been off. When we were travelling, I didn't really use my phone at all. I was using it for a map. So notifications off, not looking. And to play music, of course. We've got the child into Michael Jackson. But she continuously asks for I'm Bad and Earth Song. Mummy, can Michael Jackson sing the one where he says I'm bad? and then she goes, and it's really sad. Then she goes, and then I want the one, can we have the one now with the broken trees? And what have we done to the world? And I'm like, oh no. Anyway, and then we get to, and then I'm off, like, get onto the news. And I really just felt really sad looking at it's just so sad. Really, isn't it? It's just like...
Yes.
Anyway.
For listeners hoping to hear about how to get people to help them, we are going to get to it.
Yeah,
Don't tune out.
Sorry.
We are worried about the world. We're worried about the state of things. We're trying to do something good. And let's get on to the subject, shall we?
Yes, you're right.
Oh, no, first... Yeah.
Go on. Oh, the scores.
Well, let's recap the scores at the end. I think we'll save the scores for the end.
Save the scores to the end.
Because we've already talked enough about ourselves and our projects. How do you get people to help you? So, where should we start?
I'd like to put forward the idea that one of the important things is to actually ask people to help you.
That just seems very unreasonable to me.
just go, excuse me, would you mind terribly holding that door open while I walk through it? Or
Okay, well, that's that episode done.
I think there's some interesting things though around asking people to help you, because you've got to know what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
I think you need to be clear.
Yeah. I'm not super comfortable asking someone to help me. Often, I suppose there's a rejection thing, isn't there? Like, I don't want, if they say no, then what? So I've got to like front load as much as I can so that I feel like they can't say no. Or just kind of, sometimes I just have to wait until I don't care anymore and then I'll try it.
There's a couple of things you said in the intro, which are around paying people, reciprocity in work versus... So there's simple things. I have to say, weirdly, that my backgoing meant that I had to ask people to carry things for me. And that, well, I didn't like that at all. But now I just do. It's not it doesn't mean I've, not me anymore. It's just that I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't lift this. Can you lift it for me? I really, it was a bit of a psychological problematic moment. But now that I'm okay with that, it actually becomes easier then to go. So I think understanding what you can and can't do on your own, and that means in the form of a giant project or in the form of lifting something that's too heavy, it doesn't really matter. It's that I think it's a very similar psychology. I mean, for the delivery of my project recently, I know I am not a very good visual designer. There's lots of people I work with who are loads better than me. And I knew that for the delivery of my findings, I needed something that displayed very succinctly the main takeouts from the main findings. So I asked a visual designer who I have worked with before, and we had a nice chat, and in about 20 minutes of talking to each other, we'd got a really good idea, and then he could just put it together. And we did a couple of little iterations, and it was done. But I would have spent...
Was that a colleague?
It was a colleague.
So someone that was so they had some other stuff they were supposed to be doing, but you kind of like distracted them, got them to do it, and they just kind of like turned it around quite quickly when...
Yeah, when I would have fiddled and fiddled and fiddled, it would have taken me a disproportionately long amount of time, and so the outcome wouldn't have been as good. Yeah,
sure. So what do you think? So you needed something, you knew you couldn't do it yourself, and what was your relationship like with this person? You'd worked on something before.
We.
But you're like, he likes you, right?
Yes, I do. Well, I hope so. But yes, we've worked together before. We worked together at the Labour Party, actually. Somebody I like, and he likes me in terms of working together. We're used to working together, which does make it easy as well, because it makes it very fast, I think. It's like you and me can brainstorm an idea very quickly because there's no... I don't worry if you think I'm being a bit silly.
And there's not, like, we don't waste time on devil's advocate stuff on wheels. So I think we kind of understand each other pretty well. So,
so it's that kind of like quick.
So you were thrown together in a previous job.
Yeah.
And you just coincidentally happened to work at the same place?
Yeah. Weirdly.
You were like, oh, hey, it's you.
Exactly. We both started pretty much the same day. I was like, oh, funny thing you here.
So how do we turn that into advice? Because it's, it's sort of quite a specific thing, isn't it? It's like a relationship was formed. So did you work together quite a lot before? Well,
we worked on the same multidisciplinary team, so we worked together daily.
Right. So you sort of had a rapport already, and you basically started the development of that rapport just by, I don't know, being professional and being a good person.
But equally, you see, I also think that one way to create... I think asking for help is and I'm sure there's literature about this, or I might be even quoting from something I've forgotten I read, but there's something about asking for help that is very important in relationship building. So asking somebody how to do something or to show you something is a nice way of opening up a working relationship with somebody. How did you do that? How do I do that? Can you help me with this? So I have to say, equally, when I do that, oh, have you got any ideas for this kind of opener? And then I get deeply patronised. I'm like, well, I'm not talking to you again. Fuck you.
I tend to be pretty self-sufficient in life. If I don't know how to do something, I'll learn how to do it. I kind of pride myself on having a lot of different skills that I've, sunk time into developing over the years. One thing was, so in 2014, I moved to Berlin on my own, more or less. So I was just in this city on my own, language I didn't speak, and I needed help. Right. So, and it started off, I was sort of looking for gigs and things, and it meant that I found myself in a bar. I saw the DJ there. I kind of went up to ask how he'd sort of sorted that out. He turned out to be from Manchester, and then he turned into someone that I hung out with a bit, and we were friends, and we went for drinks, and he invited me to, New Year's Eve, birthday party type situation. Yeah. And that happened more than once. Like within the first few weeks that I was there, I formed all the new friendships that I was going to form, because after a few weeks, I got into my routine. I kind of figured out how to do most of the stuff I was going to do. I didn't need help anymore, technically. If I was then going to ask for help, it was going to be in a sort of contrived, I'm doing this because I want to be friends more than because I actually need it now. And there's something about needing help that I sort of lament the loss of, in a way.
What I think of when you say that, though, is the thing that, so there is this contrived, oh, please, can you help me? I'm a damsel in distress, kind of need help, asking for help. But then there is simply, that how would you do this question, which is still asking for help and asking for giving somebody the opportunity to give you their opinion, but without saying, look, I don't know how to do this. It's more, is there a different way, or how would you approach it? Because there's different ways of asking questions, aren't there? So
yes.
And I think one of the things I learnt in open source land, and I think we learnt a bit of this from David Siegel as well, is that whole being very specific about what you're asking for help on. Yeah, if once you know exactly what you need help with, or what you think there's room for you to learn, then I think it's easier to ask for the input. So
define tasks is a part of this, and it is a different skill. It's one that I feel like if I just sorted my life out and stopped just jumping in and starting a task, if I kind of spent more time defining what the tasks needed to be up the front with when I was going to start something, then I'd have something that I could give to someone else, that I could ask someone for help with. But when my thing is I'm just doing everything on my own. I just okay, here's what I'm going to do. And then at some point there might be a task list, but actually explaining, because some of these things are quite complex and specific, and you have something, there's this micromanagement thing that you got to watch out for. You have to sort of describe a task in a general enough way that someone can take ownership of it and do it their way. Or if it is quite specific, like writing out what I want is often kind of quite similar to just doing it myself. Yeah,
it's very hard. The fact is, Michael, that you are a very capable person. That makes that's a strength, weirdly, but also kind of a weakness, because it is probably, in most cases, faster for you to do it yourself. The problem is that there's only so many hours in the day, and that's not a scalable solution.
No.
One of the things because you did bring up my management experience, one of the things I think is really important is to understand what other people are trying to achieve in their life.
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody wants more experience of coaching a colleague, give them a task that will be best achieved by coaching a colleague. If you've got somebody who really wants to, get better at running meetings, give them a job, you know what I mean? Find out what it is that they think their weaknesses are, or agree with them. I mean, as a manager person, you often have you often have an idea of what somebody's weaknesses are, what they should be developing, or what would help them to develop.
Well, and it doesn't have to just be weaknesses. It's their goals. It's what they want.
Goals.
I've heard this advice being given. Like, if you want someone to help you, you've got to align with their goals in life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because as soon as someone's like, and then that'll help me learn this programming language or whatever, then they'll they're looking for something, a way of doing that. So you'll get a positive.
Definitely. I mean, my starting point in that was about what people want to achieve and what their goals are. But the same applies to their strengths as well and weaknesses, which is to say, look, I really think it would help you if you got better at speaking in public. Let's find you some opportunities to speak in public. Let's go to more, whatever. Even bigger meetings are an opportunity to speak in public or speak up. So I think that, I did actually do, I think it was some sort of weird HR training about 15 years ago, or sales training or something. Anyway, this guy was doing a presentation about the fact that really the way to keep employees was to help them tie their life goals to your company goals. And if the two align, then you'd likely have somebody who's incredibly loyal.
What do you think is better? Get someone that has proven experience in something to help you do something and you have to pay them too much, or get someone that's you can see is smart and eager to learn, who really wants to learn to do that, get them to do it. They'll put way too much effort into it. They may need a bit more kind of direction to get the final thing right, but they'll be cheaper. I mean, I'm saying cheaper, but I also mean, you know, in whatever terms, they will be more enthusiastic about doing it for you. But I'm using cheaper as a shorthand for if you did just pay someone. Like, what's your rule?
There's a big it depends flying on top of that, really, isn't there? There's like, I'm thinking of various situations and people. Sometimes it's really nice to just have somebody who's really good at something to say, can you do me one of these, please? And it's going to require minimum involvement from you, and you're just going to get it done. And sometimes you're like, no, I'm willing to, let's do this together. I'll help you. You know, like I'm thinking of, I don't know, like things you can outsource, like making a little animation. Yeah. You know, sometimes you can write a good brief, boom, and it actually works out cheaper. Because even though somebody's day rate's really high, they've been doing it for 25 years, and they can just, do what you need. Yeah. And then sometimes, and cheap is money plus time, I think. And then sometimes you have somebody really keen and you've misread the keenness. They're really eager to learn a thing and it's just not for them. And then you're like...
I was going to talk about that, like hiring people. And we've both had the experience of like getting it wrong. I mean, everyone's has value, but like I think I do remember us going, that was, I think we both kind of like slightly misinterpreted something. Yeah. But what I was just going to say about if you are going to get the enthusiastic person that wants to learn the skill, I feel like you have to foresee a bit of a longer term relationship with them, because if you're sort of developing them, and so it's a bit annoying when you kind of develop someone and then they go. It's like, well, shit.
I've invested all this time and energy.
That's what made me quit LBI, because I just was developing all these people, and then the LBI politics were just kind of like pushing them out, and I was like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just working incubating and then releasing these people. It's like, and then I just have to do it again. It's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I mean, because you can't. I think it's nice to have really smart people that are inexperienced, but then sometimes that can be quite tiring. Yes. Because you do have to be on it, and it's not, you've got to take the responsibility for the output. I think that's my view. If you're taking somebody less experienced who's costing you less money, you've got to be, even though you're on the face of it really giving them all the responsibility, as the manager person who's made that choice, you've got to take responsibility ultimately for the output, because they're not it's not fair for them to. They're not getting paid to take responsibility. They're getting paid to be the junior and learn stuff. So I think that's that
was a bit of advice I'd had, was because I was I contract, and then I can find myself frustrated with the work someone else in the team is doing, and I keep having to kind of firefight and kind of work around. The advice I was given that was very useful was like, well, it's responsibility lies with authority. And so if you don't have authority, how can you be responsible for something else? Yeah. So, and then that was what then let me go, okay, I could talk to the person that does have authority, kind of tell them that this is something that I kind of need them to figure out, make my case, and then not try and solve it myself, because I can't really get any change to happen because I'm not part of that kind of authority hierarchy in the right way to be responsible. Because I've always had, I think, my relationship with responsibility has always been quite, I don't know, overwrought.
Well, I think it's in that sort of that sort of scenario that you're talking about. When I'm doing a job, and this definitely came up when I was your manager. It's like this whole taking responsibility for things over which you have no authority can be really stressful.
Yeah, no, it's horrible.
It's a really unpleasant feeling. You're like, this is my fault if it all goes wrong. But it's not your fault because you can't assign the resource. You don't have the authority to have the response, and it's horrible, really, really stressful. So I think it is quite a that bit of understanding, I suppose, in a way.
So
maybe
a realization, that I've only recently, I had to have it explained to me. I was like, oh yeah, that's why I'm kind of stressed. It's because I'm trying to take responsibility for something I don't have authority over. But I don't think this is a general issue that.
I don't know that. I'm just thinking, like, with the person in authority, if rather than telling them what's wrong, because I've been in the same situation where I'm like, you're asking me to do a thing, I can't do the thing because you're not letting me, because you're not giving me authority. So that whole, perhaps asking for help might be a way around the person with authority, or a way to get them on board.
Yeah,
instead of going, this is wrong.
I mean, I have found this approach effective in the past. It's like, okay, it was your job to print out these 20,000 letters to release this scheme. You haven't done it. The scheme can't get released unless it gets done. So I guess I'm doing it. And right, where are we going to get printer cartridges to print 20,000 letters? I did this in 2001, like in one of my first jobs. Like we had to launch this housing allocation scheme, and there was just this kind of like brick wall lazy department that refused to do any, just didn't want to work. They were like permanent council employees. They were just like, oh, it's their job. Okay, that's never getting done. So like I guess it started out like the only way to get stuff done was just to do it yourself. Like at a certain point, sometimes it's the only option.
Yeah, that's one of the worst things. Working with people who, who don't do things. It's like,
won't let you do it, won't give up the ownership of it, but also won't do it. Yeah. It's like, that was why was my biggest problem with the public sector, was like, you get these lifers and they're just not going to do it. Like, no repercussions. Like,
I'll put a good word in for a few lifers that I've worked with that I thought were really good, but they are.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying. It's just they're sprinkled in.
They are. It's funny. Another important aspect of asking people for help, it's also to inspire them. Inspiration is a really important bit of this. It's so it's quite amusing at the moment. My daughter, she's doing a lot of role play of, I'm the teacher and you must sit there and listen to me and do this. We were in the pub the other week, and she was trying to design a card game that we could all play together. So there are 4 adults, 2 children, and she was like, now everybody must sit down and do this. And she was being really authoritarian. She was like, this is how the game must play. No, it's not your turn. And I was like, this is the opportunity to start talking to her about the fact that just telling people what to do isn't enough. You actually have to get them excited about your game first, and then maybe they'll join in. But she sort of decided from nowhere. But this kind of inspiration thing is, and I've read in too many places that you shouldn't tell your little girl they're being bossy, because if she were a little boy, she'd be told she was being a leader.
Yes.
But I'm like, you can't just keep having a go at people to get them to do what you want them to do. You're going to have to make it a little bit more exciting. But the inspiring thing is fundamental. I mean, you can get people to do shit just because you have power.
Yeah, and that was my eldest brother approach.
I am strongest.
But then when you don't have the power, it's sort of like, I do much better when I just have actual authority. when I kind of don't have, I can't. It's like I was always just like, this is how it's going to be. And it does work with, it works with
Siblings.
people do. I think I do it I think I'm a kind dictator. Given the thing, but yeah, it works with some people. Some people really love it, and some people kind of like just take issue with it. So it's like, I'm not saying I'm particularly good at it, but like that's definitely my childhood. No dissent. Dissent will be punished.
I don't know how I have quite a lot of that sort of authority over my younger siblings, but I'm not entirely sure why. I just always just told people what to do. I remember once being in a bar with them and something weird happened, and I just went, "We're going," and they just stood up and followed me out, and with their respective partners, and they were like, "What? We're going just because Ivana said so?" And they were like, "Yep." "Well, but why?" And they were like, "We'll find out when we leave. She'll tell us. But if she says we're going, then we're going." I was like, "Okay."
Nice.
Yeah. That's,
Do you know, I found like young people very obedient. You just say something, they're like, "Okay, get on that." I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'm sort of starting to like the little bit of grey is I'm sort of the students and the young people and the thing is like, I'd be like, "Oh, I think we should do this," and they'd be like, "Okay." I'm like, "Oh, you're not gonna." Like argue with me or question me, you're just going to get on with it. Cool. I should do more of this.
Yeah,
oh dear.
That's why I'm waiting. I want more grey hair for this particular reason.
I've got this grey beard patch. Maybe that's what's changed it. Just a weird little white beard patch under my chin.
So, number 4, grow grey hair.
Well, I think grey hair, and if you're a man, certainly having a beard is a boon. My dad's trained as an architect, and he, like as a mid-20s-year-old, had to go onto building sites as the architect and tell like builders what to do. And he was like quite a short man with like he went, and he just like they would just ignore him. He'd have the plans, and they would be like, "Fuck off, mate." And so he had to. So and then he grew a beard and like managed to get a bit more authority just from having the beard. So I think like maybe that's what's the female equivalent of growing a beard? Is there one? It's the power suit, but that, it's not really the same, is it?
A beard.
Growing a beard.
I've written it down.
Really helps.
I don't know what it is. Grey hair.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's all he can do. But then that, that makes it. I don't think it means the same. It doesn't have the same effect, I don't think.
What, if you're a woman with grey hair?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. So on my experience of the mentoring day, one of the there were 2 women and 1 male mentor in my group, and the man was very inexperienced. To the point where I'm not sure that he should have been a mentor.
Right.
Like I was like, "What are you talking about?" Shh. And then, but there was a child in the group who was, he was non-British. Like his cultural background meant that he constantly deferred to this man. And I was like, I can't fix this
I can't pre-program this in an afternoon.
I can't sort this out this quickly, so he's just going to have to deal with me. But I think what helps me now is that I'm not bothered, but I'm just like, whatever.
So point 7, have beard / be male.
Yes. I watched this talk once at South by Southwest, no less. And one of the speakers was this guy. I can't even remember the topic of what he talked about. I can't remember anything else about what he said, except for the fact that in a professional capacity, when somebody asks you for help and you give them the help, and they say thank you, you must always say, "That's quite all right. I'm sure you will do the same for me one day." And you actually have to call out the reciprocity, make it explicit, which I actually think that I'm one of those people that will quite happily introduce people, pass things around. "Oh, I've got offered this job, I can't do it. Let me introduce somebody else, blah, blah, blah." And I don't really, I've started training myself to try and put in some of that reciprocity, because I sort of live in this maybe naive world.
Some of that request for reciprocity, or some of
the request for reciprocity. So I do stuff. If somebody asks me for help or asks me for an intro, and sometimes they don't even ask, and I sort of go, I saw this thing, I think it's interesting for you, here it is. I think that's just who I am.
You just do it. Like once I think you're like me in this. I'm the same. It's like if I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. I'm not doing it. No. But then I get very surprised sometimes that the people that I've done it for then don't think of me. Do you know, like, I'm like...
So this does key into the experience I had of consciously trying to find ways to do things for other people. And just that it kind of relates quite closely to mental health as well. If you're kind of feeling really shit, and one of the best ways I've found to deal with that is just to do something for someone else and just solve someone else's problem. So, that for me has resulted in me kind of going on Facebook, does anyone need anything? And then someone comes back and goes, I'm trying to work out how to theme this blog. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend my day doing that, just sorting your blog out one way or another. And then that has turned into a friendship, and like quite a nice friendship that wasn't there before. There's a sort of a new kind of understanding. But I have noticed that it's always kind of the same people that want help, and most people won't engage with something like that. And then I'll find that they always sort of like want more help. And I'm always kind of the one doing stuff. And it's sort of like, well, this isn't sustainable. What do we do? So I think the people that aren't really thinking about the reciprocity, if I called it out a bit more, but also when asking for help, say, look, if you need anything, does that feel like a trap?
There are some people in life that need more help. And some people who are more able to provide it. And I think we go through phases as humans. We go through phases where we kind of need more, and then we go through phases where we're more self-sufficient or more able to give people help. So I think that's sort of like taking it too scorecardy is a bit dangerous, because this guy that was doing the talk was very American, and this is like a very thing that you should do with your emails. But I do think, it doesn't sound needy or like you're counting if you just go, no problem, I'm really happy to do for you. I'm sure there's something you could do for me at some point, or I'm sure if I ever need anything, I'll know who to ask or whatever. I don't think it's hard to throw, though I just struggled to say that. It just sounded weird, didn't it? You do get people, I think, some people who kind of use you.
Favour asking machine. There was one person that started just like every day. It was like, can you help me with this? Can you do this? I'm like, Jesus Christ, are you ever gonna? I don't know what. Like, do you not have any concept of reciprocity? Do you not have any concept that like you don't just get stuff?
I think there's something about doing something for someone versus helping them to do it.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know how to theme my blog. Well, how far have you got? Oh, did you know that if you do this, that might help? I can help you with, do you know what I mean? Like,
that was often my approach to things, because I get called in for flipping tech support on stuff just before I kind of embraced the idea of just like no reward altruism, helping people and like doing things I didn't feel like doing. I kind of had someone come to me and go, like, wanting me to set up their DNS settings or whatever for their website. And I was like, look, if you go out of your way and come to my flat and go through it with me, Like, I'll show you where it is. I'll make sure the email, like registration emails go to you. Well, you know, when they couldn't be bothered to kind of like, I don't want to just do this. I'm not just someone that's going to do this. Like, I'm not tech support for your website, but I'm going to show you where it is. I'm going to show you which button does what, and it never needs to be done again, but like at least the emails are going to the right place and you can kind of confirm it, and I'm not now responsible for this flipping domain for the rest of my life. There's this thing of, oh well, it's nothing for you to do. Have you ever seen that David, that Australian guy that gets into this email thread with someone that wants him to just fix a graphic design and keeps like delivering really sort of sarcastic results, and then the guy going, well, it just takes you 5 minutes to do it, and then he goes, it takes me 5 minutes plus 5 years of design school and 10 years of professional experience to do it. But some people are like, well, it's easy for you to do, just do it. It's like, what?
Depends how close they are as a friend.
I find myself all day stuck at a computer screen. It always makes me feel like I am living in a dream. A world inside the world, a manufactured fantasy. I wish I could escape it, but I can't seem to get free. Paying people for help. I think there's two ends of the spectrum. Like, so have you ever used Fiverr?
No.
It's Fiverr.com. So that's like you ostensibly pay someone a $5 to do some little task, write some copy, make a little GIF for you, like do like an app layout or something.
Right.
You always end up paying quite a lot more than that in just the little add-ons because you want this and that. So there's the cheap end of the spectrum. But on that end of the spectrum, you tend to get something that is pretty generic. But if you do have an idea that can be constructed from a lot of generic elements, then something like that is a really easy way to go. So you just find someone that's already doing basically the thing you need, and then they just whip one off for you, and you know, for a $5 or a $10 or whatever. The stuff that's expensive that I would prefer is like, say, a bespoke design based on doing loads of research with me and loads of brainstorming and mood boards and all this kind of thing. So that's what you pay a lot for. But I always default back to, if I can just pay someone to do something, then I don't have to worry about whether or not they like me. But that's not even true.
No, it's not. I don't mind paying people to do things at all. And I'm talking things like plumbers and people, just coming around. It's like, look, I'm paying you for me to not have to think about this. That's what I'm paying for. But at the same time, things like I'm not trying to be an expert in those. I think it's harder to pay. We pay people to do work on the Restaurants Brighton website. Yeah. I have certain expectations of what I think good is. We also have a limited amount of money we can spend. So there's that sort of the balance. But then I think as long as we're respectful of the people that we're working with, I think it's still, whether you're paying somebody or not, you still have to have a respectful working relationship with them. It doesn't really matter whether they've come to clean your house or build you a website or come up with a new logo or whatever it is. There's still...
Yeah, money isn't a substitute for humanity.
No, it's just a very explicit way of rewarding somebody for the work done. It's when it comes into favours and swaps and is my work as valuable as your work, and just because that only took me 5 minutes to do that DNS thing, but it took me 10 years of practice to know how to do it quickly. What's worth more money? That's tricky. I did see that. That's another thing I want to do on my blank state thing is, what if instead of money, everything was just time? What if it was only time that was being rewarded? How would that be different? That'd be weird, because there's not really any incentive to get fast at things. Or is there? Yeah, but then you're still working. Still getting it done. I think you'd get bored. I think if you were always doing something the same. Yeah. When I worked with the Mike, who used to fix TVs and videos and anything, sonar and radars, anything he could fix. Yeah. He was incredibly fast because he was just like a electronics savant. People, is that the way you say it? He was incredibly fast because he'd been taking things apart and fixing them since he was like 2. Yeah. But then he charged kind of, I think, disproportionately low It's like, well, it only took me 2 minutes. Right. It's like, yeah, but you're the only person in the
world. But if everyone
that...
did that, if CEOs did that as well, like, True. Don't you think? I know this is like not necessarily a pod, but it would instead of encouraging you to try and find a job that the market values more, it would encourage you to find a way to spend your time that you enjoyed or you got more out of. So I think there's another experiment for the kind of like blue sky thing.
On the van drive over on the subject of the market, is that whole, going through that whole, the market finds its place. The market will adjust. The market will always be fair. The market's a miracle. I can't remember what my thought process were, but at the end of my driving along for a bit and thinking about that, I declared it to myself to be utter bullshit. It's like, no, I can no longer accept that, even as vaguely true.
It has utterly no values. It's utterly idiosyncratic, and it will just does not care about anyone.
The other thing I worked on my drive, which may or may not be related, because I remember last time talking about the fact that there's some sort of connection between German motorways and libertarianism, but now I've further developed my analogy. Because there's something about sort of driving on a motorway that has no speed limits, and obviously people have differently powerful cars. Yeah. Driving on German motorways I find very stressful, because you're like, because people are driving up behind you so quickly. But there's people who drive responsibly, because if they cause an accident, many people will die, not just them. And then there's people who go, fuck you, I've got a really powerful, fast car, and I will drive however I choose. And to me, that's that perfect analogy of that sort of libertarian society where, you can go fast, but leaving havoc behind you, around you, in front of you. Or you can kind of go, yes, I've got a very powerful car, which I can enjoy driving, but I must adjust to the fact that it's sleeting and that there's lots of people. Just think about other people. It's really simple, but anyway, that was my little... People should take road trips. They're very good for your thinkings.
I think the main thing about how to get people to do things for you is to just be a good person. It's one of the rewards of just being good, being professional, being, respectful of people. It's the reason to be a good person, is that you'll form these relationships. Over the years, you'll accumulate more people that will know how to do things. And then I guess you've got to know what you want, and you've got to need help.
Yeah.
I do think this how would you do this thing is something I'm going to start doing. It wasn't in my vocabulary.
Glad to have been of assistance, Michael.
To get people to help you, just, be a good person and be able to articulate what you need, and ideally have a vision.
Yeah, I think it helps to have something that inspires people, like be that because it's something good or because it's something exciting or interesting or something that piques people's curiosity. So, getting mentoring Think Nation, people want to do that because it feels like a valuable activity. And so, like having a project that is worth, people... Worthy or just exciting, like loads of people worked on Ubuntu because they were completely in love with the idea of Ubuntu, and so that's the having that sort of inspirational idea.
Yeah, and align with people's, find out what people want in life, and there's probably something that you can do together.
Exactly.
Also, finally, just find young people, because they just do what you tell them. It's weird.
If you've got a beard.
If you've got a beard, and only if. Shall we do a little quick score roundup? Done good.
Done good.
So I worked on the app for recording the good deeds, which I think is genuinely something. So I've given myself a point for adding email and comments to our Done Good system. I hosted a house guest. I'm giving myself a point for that because I was really like, but it went really well and it was good. He was a good house guest as well because I've had this £10 a month Amnesty International donation going for like years.
Yeah.
And our system only lets you do a weekly recurring thing. and I can't be bothered to figure out how that would look if it was monthly or different periods. So instead, but I wanted that to register on there, so I just changed it to £40 a month so that I could get a point a week.
Lucky amnesty.
Well, lucky amnesty, and it's like ends up. But I may switch the charity in future, but I may try some different ones, or I may like break it up. But I just wanted to be able to have a recurring thing on my feed. So it's interesting how a technical limitation kind of can change things. Someone on Facebook wanted some help with podcasting that I didn't really know, but I was like, I'll help you, and then I helped. It turned out to be quite good because I was able to use our Pippa promo code. I deducted a point for accepting a plastic bag in a shop. It's the one time I didn't have a bag, but I could have said, don't give me that bag, but then I would have had to shamefully walk with a big bag of popcorn and snacks back to the studio and someone might have seen me.
Good.
We had a Christmas dinner and I consciously didn't buy any disposable tat, even though I kind of wanted something a bit more sparkly and crackers and things. I was like, let's not buy crackers. I mean, that really is the worst single-use plastic. You want something that's going straight into a landfill and never will die as one of those little cracker toys. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get a point at least. And then I gave myself 3 for, I'd done quite a lot of work on my first video towards my kind of scheme to get people thinking a bit more proactively in blue sky thinking project. So I don't know if you think 3, but I've spent quite a lot of hours on it already, so I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think as a seed to a broader project, I think that's good, because we're going to do more on it, aren't we?
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So you can have your 3.
Thank you. So that gives me 7 overall.
Okay. And I've got my Ecotricity, my Ecosia.
Shitty search engine.
I don't think it's as bad as. Anyway, I have maintained use of it.
Okay.
I picked up rubbish in the children's playground here in Sutivan, and we made a recycled Christmas tree out of pallets.
Right. So what does that? So like wooden pallets, like a forklift would pick up.
Yeah. So which we already have.
How does that get turned into a Christmas tree?
Well, you must log on to our Instagram. I'm going to put the pictures on there.
Does it look like? Yeah.
It looks like it looks bloody amazing.
I'm on the edge of my seat because I don't know how you make that into a Christmas tree.
Anyway, it looks really good, and then I think I might actually give myself 2 points for that, so that I can beat you this week because.
Right. Oh, I see.
We made all the decorations, me and the small child. She had a wonderful time, though we did use glitter, so I won't take a point because we already had the glitter. We didn't go and buy any.
Yeah, but once it's out there.
I know.
If it was still in its packet, it'd be okay, but now it's out.
Now it's out there poisoning the world. And then the other thing I did was drive to Croatia instead of fly. So I spent 3 days doing that.
Yeah, so that's pretty epic.
It's really.
So you've given yourself 3 because it's a habit, but yeah, certainly if it was the first time, you'd probably want more.
I think, yeah.
So do you think 7 that's 7 each? Do you think that's our capacity, or do you think we're going to keep pushing it? Because it's been 2 weeks in a row, it's been 7 all.
Has it? Oh, well, yeah. I'm going to make more effort to record my points this week. Let's see.
I mean, I'm sure if you can think of them, add them, because I think, honestly, I didn't really have any. Like I don't think if I thought harder, I'd find more points from 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago.
Well,
I think,
on this,
you have to be
on this picking up rubbish thing. I also, because I had this conversation with a friend who says that now every time he leaves the house, he picks up 3 pieces of rubbish. So I did that at a service. I didn't do it every time we stopped because it was snowing a lot, so frankly I didn't see much rubbish. But I picked up rubbish all in, not just in the children's playground here, but also at a service station. So I could give myself another point for that.
Okay, well, feel free to, shit all over me with all of
pick up rubbish in service station. And also, I had to walk the recycling to the recycling place here. And whilst I was there, I took the opportunity to pick up the rubbish around the recycling bins, which always have lots of. So I don't think 7 is our capacity.
And then I think you can subtract 4 points for being 15 minutes late without really telling me what's going on.
Subtract 4 points.
Like after that thing where you're like, oh, I've got to finish 10 minutes early in 2 weeks' time, I was like, okay, that's kind of you to say that, but I feel like the signal noise perception is maybe a little off.
Well,
if you're going to warn me 2 weeks in advance about 10 minutes, then, you know.
And then rock up 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm on island time now. That's the problem. There you go. I've gone up 8.
Flipping hell.
I'm going to pay more attention. Anyway, so I win. Hooray. Oh, no, the recycling one was this morning, so therefore it's gone into next week's.
But
so I'm
you're
already
still,
ahead of you.
Yeah, okay. So it's basically, so far, the running total is 3 to Ivanka and 1 draw.
Yeah.
So I'm not a good person, and Ivanka's so much better than me. Oh, so much better than you, she's always saying.
I do that all the time.
Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com, subscribe to it if you're not already subscribed. Subscribing, if you don't know what it is, don't know what it does, of course you know what it does. So just subscribe on there, and your Apple Podcasts app, it'll pop up, or whatever app you're using, so you don't have to kind of click on Facebook things or YouTube things. It'll just kind of like proactively tell you, and it'll know where you were up to, all that kind of thing. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
You can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
You can find me at michaelforrestmusic.com, and I've done all the music. What else is there?
The other things people can do is that they can go, what would be really kind of you all as a special Christmas present to me and Michael would be to go and write us a review or give us some star ratings on things. Tell one friend to listen to our podcast. That would be really cool. And that would double our listeners. Woo! And there you go. Those are nice things you can do. Nice kind of things.
And the final little thing is, we've been talking about this done good, sort of good deeds leaderboard thing. Please email us if you're interested in getting involved in that. hello@grandpodcast.com, or for any other reason. I reckon I'm one more round of changes away from making this something that I can let people use generally. It's basically, if someone else signed up now, then there'd be 3 columns and 4 columns, and it would get all messy. So I just need to introduce like following and that kind of thing, so that you only see your friends. But I don't think I'm far off something that can be shared. So if you like the idea of competitive altruism, or competitive, like just keeping track of the positive things you're doing ecologically, just being a good person.
If you too want to beat Michael.
If you want to beat my score of 7, which I thought was pretty good this week, but
that's excellent.
Apparently, if only I hadn't taken that plastic bag. You see, it might not make the difference to the earth, but it would have meant that Ivanka didn't beat me this week. And isn't that the real reason to do good things?
It is.
The best reason. All right, well, thanks for listening.
We'll
see you next time.
Bye. 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 Bye.